Suppose today you can tell your 20-year-old self something on business. What would be the advice you give him that you should not do?
That's a good question. I would say that your intuition is right. That as long as you don't die, this is a marathon, and it's a hell of a lot better to train for a marathon than a sprint, and that's it. Like I'm so grateful for where I'm sitting today, heading into the prime of my business career with really deep fundamental skill sets that will help me navigate through no matter what happens going forward, both emotionally and in business. And so I was a very unique kid. I built a very big business in my 20s and was still paying myself $60,000 a year and didn't need stuff because I wanted to be all-time great. And I kept reinvesting in my businesses instead of buying watches and sneakers and cars. And I wouldn't really want to say too much because I would be scared if I said something, that kid would do something differently than he did.
Since we are in Asia, that most businesses are actually driven by family, and one of the things I actually identified when I read Ask Gary Vee is that you also work in a family business too, and I think that's probably one of the most interesting and very under-talked in most of your interviews. So I want to ask you, what is the experience like, and how do you navigate the dynamics in working with family?
Good. So I've been getting in tune with this a little bit more now that AJ has left VaynerMedia. This is probably the first time I've really operated in some pseudo capacity of not having family with me in my entire career, even though AJ's still on the cap table and things of that nature, and I still talk to him about it. Though to his credit, he never asks and lets me do my thing. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of. I think when people look back at my career and dig under the hood, which even me saying that speaks to the audacity that I have, and I want to be an all-time entrepreneur, I really do. But not because I say it, because I execute. I'm very proud that from 22 to 34, I built my dad's business for him. To give you the answer for everybody who's listening, because it's very hard, the reason I've been able to make family businesses work is because I love my dad and brother more than I like money. It's just really not complicated. Family businesses are difficult because you're choosing between family and money. Let's make it very binary. You can pull over on the side of the road right now, you can turn off your treadmill, you can stop walking your dog. I promise you, that's all that's happening. It's the love of your family member versus the money, and what's overlaid, and the hardest part is pride, or the score, as I call it. My biggest problem hasn't been the money, it's been the competitive nature of trying to figure out who's better, me and my dad, me and my brother. The thing that has been most difficult is the narrative on who's driving the ship, who's the best player on the team, and getting the respect back and forth. And I would say it was easier with my brother than it was with my dad, as that would make sense. But I think the reason I've been able to be successful is a little bit of 51-49. As I talked about earlier, I do that with my two family members. But I would say this, it is easily the most difficult thing that I think most people have to go through, because first of all, it's hard enough to build a business. When you overlay the emotional baggage of family dynamics, insecurities, fairness, and I also only worked with my brother who was 11 years younger. If my sister had joined the business, and she was 3.5 years younger than me, if she joined the wine business, that would have been another dynamic. It is very difficult. And I would tell everybody the following line. You've got to try your best to take a step back and think about the funeral of the other individuals and take that into account. The thing that always allowed me to navigate was I didn't want to be at my dad's funeral and have regret. And I felt that it was better to leave a lot of money on the table and bet on myself in the long term that I would be able to close the gap than to have no relationship with my father. And I think, for a lot of Asian youngsters, I feel like the Russian and the Asian family dynamics are far more similar than, let's say, a Russian or Asian dynamic to an American family. And so I think a lot of you are gonna understand that. But I will say this as well. I don't overreact either. I know your parents, like mine, expected respect. My dad wants respect just because he's my dad. I think that only goes so far. And so if you want to do something that is good for you legacy-wise and you feel good about when your parents are no longer in the picture, I recommend that. But I think you also have to draw lines in the sand for your own pride in your own life and you have to be okay with making tough decisions. And so I have a lot of empathy on this subject matter.
So I want to come to VaynerMedia because
Yes.
you're coming to Asia with VaynerMedia.
Yes.
What inspired you to start VaynerMedia, and what is the mission and vision of your company?
I want to build the greatest marketing machine of all time. I call it the Death Star of marketing. It's why I created a holding company, and why you'll hear me start saying VaynerX more than VaynerMedia, because VaynerMedia is the agency part, but I'm going to be building out the publishing part with VaynerX. The vision was very simple. I thought I was a unique, once-in-a-generation marketer. I know how ridiculous of a statement that is, but I needed to prove it to myself whether I was right or not. And I thought the best way to do that was to build an infrastructure and a company around my skill set. And then what I wanted to do was buy brands and run it through them. The Asian aspect of our expansion, and very much this trip is a little bit about getting acclimated to Singapore with an ambition to open an office here, is I just couldn't imagine, very tough to have world domination and not have a play in Asia. So as I see the next 30 or 40 years working out in my career, I was invigorated with my trip to Hong Kong recently, and I'm so excited about this trip. This is the beginning of a 2-day trip. There's just clearly a different energy in entrepreneurship and business that is a little bit more in tune with me. There's a reason why I think I can only live in New York, and this is a ridiculous thing to say, and even at times New York feels a little slow to me. So I'm looking for that energy, that drug of high intensity, high pressure, winner attitude, and I feel like Asia, intuitively I felt it, and it's been confirmed, and I'm excited to see how I feel in 48 hours, but I'm excited about it.
So I know some of your customers because I went to the website. I know Budweiser, Unilever, Toyota, your major customers, but specifically in US or Asia, globally, who are your customers?
Yeah, so we have Fortune 500 companies, Johnson & Johnson, global Fortune 500 companies, Johnson & Johnson's and Chase and Budweiser ABI and Unilever and on and on and on. And so Turner Broadcasting, a lot of the TV clients out there in the US, GE, these are major companies with offices all around the world, and a lot of our expansion is to do with a little bit of the pressure I feel that we have to become more global or we'll become too one-dimensional. For a lot of these companies, as you can imagine, America is a huge market, but every day becomes less of the percentage of their overall business. And so we work with very big brands. We've built a division called Vayner Beta. We've built a division called Vayner Talent. So we want to work with smaller businesses because I don't want to lose those roots. But when we come to Asia, it will be focused first on the Fortune 1000. And then, call it 2022, 2023, I can start thinking about how to service small and medium-sized businesses in the region.
And the business problems that your company is trying to solve for the customers, what are they?
Every company in the world is overspending on marketing. Every one of them.
That's a good mission statement.
And so I just want to be historically correct that I'm right about that statement. I know I am, and I think in hindsight I'll win a lot of points in history. So we are trying to get our brands to reallocate their dollars, and every market is different. And so the way a Johnson & Johnson or a Unilever or a Budweiser or Chase or Toyota markets in America is going to be different than the way they market in Malaysia or in South Korea. And I want to be great at telling them what to do with their money and then produce the pictures, videos, and written words that help them achieve their business goals.
Cool. So you just launched a pair of sneakers. What's that about?
So this is a super fun thing, for everybody who's in their early 40s like I am, especially if you had the luxury of growing up in America. Sneaker culture is very big globally now, but I was a child of the 80s when the Jordans and the Ewings and the Barkleys and the Larry Birds and Magic Johnsons, when sports sneakers became a thing. I was reached out to by K-Swiss about a year and a half ago, and they said, look, Adidas has won by aligning itself with Kanye, and they've won, urban culture. Obviously Nike and Under Armour are playing in sports culture. We think that entrepreneurship is a new pillar of fame, and we think you're the face for it. And would you consider doing a sneaker? Before he finished, Barney, the president of K-Swiss, before he finished the statement, I said yes. because it was a win. I always say yes fast when it's win-win. The way I saw it is, I also agree that entrepreneurship is now on a cultural pedestal, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. So I expect other entrepreneurs to have sneakers. And for me, being the first is always interesting. So that was number one. And then number two, if it didn't work, it would be a fun, kind of side note for me and my buddies to make fun of my audacity that I thought I was cool enough to have a sneaker and it flopped and I have 5,000 pairs sitting in my garage.
That's interesting. So you're in Asia now.
Yes.
I mean, I definitely get the motivation why you came from the US to Asia.
Yes.
Since you are in Singapore and you've also been to Hong Kong, what
Yes.
are your first impressions of Asia with these two cities?
So my biggest impression, and I've spent a lot of time also watching from afar, and when I say watching afar, signing into WeChats and Q and all these things, and so it's just a different level of rawness that I appreciate. And I hate when Americans or Europeans speak to, oh, the ethics are not as good. It's all loser talk. They're coming up with excuses. I think there's a level of ambition, a level of perseverance, and a level of can-do attitude that is intoxicating for real entrepreneurs. And so that is my first impression, that people are hungry. And now look, I think China is an incredibly intriguing cloud, and I don't use cloud as a bad thing, but it is a thing that I think, the Asian market always thinks about what are they up to. It's a thing. And I think that's intriguing. So I think it's a little early for me to make a thoughtful statement. I bought cryptocurrency in 2013 and 14 and I'm still not on the record on my thoughts on it. So it's tough for me to think about making my official Asian POV, but the people have been so disproportionately interesting to me. It's the ambition. The ambition's real.
Yep, I totally agree. So it comes to the closing. So I want to ask you two things. One is, can you recommend something that has profound influence in your life in the form of a book, podcast, or media?
So this is a tough question for me. I'm a very unique guy. The answer is sure, but it's gonna be a uniquely interesting answer, which is my audience. So for example, I just connected from Hong Kong to Singapore, 4-hour flight. I slept, so even though it was nighttime and I was trying to get tired, what did I do? The guy next to me is watching a movie. Other people are doing all sorts of different things on their electronic devices. I spent 4 straight hours reading comments from people on my content.
Wow.
So I think the reason that I'm a good culture, consumer-centric strategist is because I probably spend more time reading comments than anybody I've ever heard of. So when I used to talk about in Thank You Economy, engage with, when I talk about reply to everybody and things of that nature, what I didn't realize in 2011 that I now do in 2017 was I was already reading everyone, so the addition of replying seemed like a very lightweight ask. And that has been unbelievably effective for me. So that has been my greatest impact on me, which has been the audience itself.
So I would definitely check out all the comments and drop you a note.